both at the beginning of the page, which means that the names of the surahs were given by the Prophet ﷺ by means of revelation. So no one can invent the name of a surah other than the name that which has been given by the Prophet ﷺ. But then these ulama thought, if the names have been given by the Prophet ﷺ, how come that we have different names for the same surah? Some surahs have more than one name. For instance, Surah Al-Fatiha has more than 52 names. Al-Fatiha, Al-Kanz, Al-Salat, Al-Kitab, Fatiha Al-Kitab, Al-Sabr Al-Mathani, and many other names, Al-Nur. And one of the surahs that have got more than one name is Surah Al-Tawbah, this surah. So the ulama said, how come that some surahs have got many names? And why of all these names, one name has been selected to be put in the Mus'haf? And again, the response to that was that the name that has been selected to be put in the Mus'haf has been mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ said, put this name in the Mus'haf, or put this name as it is. And they took as an evidence for that the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, يأتي القرآن يوم القيامة مثل الغمام تتقدمه الزهراوتان البقرة وآل عمران. That the Qur'an will come on the day of judgment like clouds, shading the people who used to read it. And the front of these clouds, in the front line, are the two surahs, Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran. So the ulama said that the two surahs, Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran, have been mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ with their names. So these are the names that have been put in the Mus'haf. However, the other names of the specific surahs have been mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, but not to be used there in the Mus'haf. So why would a surah have more than one name? Arabs normally give different names for various reasons. One of these reasons, and I'm starting with the lowest one, one of these reasons is the perspective from which you see the person. In our life we do that. You call your wife a name, she's known by a specific name to her family, and by another name at home, and by a third name at school. And you give her a name, right? And then later on in life you like another name, so you attach it to her, right? Same thing. Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, Aisha, Aish, Umar Abdullah, has been given different names by the Prophet ﷺ, depending on the perspective that you look at it, right? So we give different things, different names, depending on the perspective that you give to them. How do you see them? Like when you look at one of your children, you give them a pet name, you give them another name, you give them a third name, you give them a fourth name. Another reason why names are given is honor. Arabs used to give different names to something that has gotten honor. And there is a very famous incident in which a man from Ahlul Bayt called Al-Sharif Al-Murtada. Two brothers, Al-Sharif Al-Rabi and Al-Sharif Al-Murtada. Both are brothers and both were Sayyids. One of them was the Ra'is Al-Ashraf, he was the head of all the Sayyids in Baghdad. And both of them were men of letters. And both of them didn't like each other because there was like a competition between them, in a sense. Anyway, Al-Sharif Al-Murtada was visiting one of the sultans, and a famous poet and philosopher known as Abu al-Ala al-Ma'ari, a man who was blind, was going into that palace at the same time. So he pumped into Al-Sharif Al-Murtada. But since Abu al-Ala was blind, he could not see who was in front of him, so he stumbled in him. So Al-Sharif Al-Murtada looked at him and he said, Man hadha al-kalb? Who is this dog? Who is this dog? He didn't realize that he is blind, he doesn't see. So he said, who is this dog? And Abu al-Ala was a very smart man. Abu al-Ala was a very, very, very strong philosopher. So he said on the spot, a dog is the one who does not know 70 names of a dog. A dog is the one who doesn't know the 70 names of a dog. And Al-Sharif Al-Murtada was flabbergasted. He was like shocked. He couldn't answer. He could not bring about what? The 70 names. Abu al-Ala could have said to him, you are the dog, but he could not say that. Why, this is a Sayyid from Ahlul Bayt, so he can't go to that level. He didn't even know who was that. But Abu al-Ala, and he doesn't want to get himself into a fight. So the best thing is to corner the person. So he said to him, this is the one who doesn't know 70 names of the dog. Ana Sharif al-Mukhtar couldn't. Like he didn't memorize 70 names of the dog. So they call this Ma'arratul Ma'arri. Ma'arra is the city where he comes from. And Ma'arra in Arabic also means disgrace. It means the disgrace that was put by Al-Ma'arri on this man. Like when you ask a person a question and he doesn't answer, you're disgracing him, you're scandalizing him. So they call this Ma'arratul Ma'arri. Many centuries later, 4 centuries later, 400 years later, a famous Shafi'i scholar called Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, rahimahullah, great Allama, great scholar of all times. Imam al-Hafiz al-Suyuti, rahimahullah, died 911 and was born in 831. He thought, how can I respond to Abu al-Ala al-Ma'arri's question that was there 400 years ago? So he was a very strong man in language. So he tried to look into lexicons and dictionaries, finding the names of the dog, how many names Arabs have given to the dog, and he found 62 names. He could not beat the 70. So he put all the 62 names in a book and he called it At-Tabarri min Ma'arrat al-Ma'arri, like removing the disgrace of al-Ma'arri. Then later on, one of the scholars of Hijaz, Dr. Abdurrahman ibn Shumayl al-Ahdal, he found the other 8 names. So he put them together and he put everything in poetry. Anyway, this is how Arabs used to give. They gave 70 names for a dog. They gave 1,000 names for a lion. So the higher something is, they give more names. 500 names for a camel. 1,000 names for a sword. So why would they give different names to a surah? Because of what? Because of the honor of that surah. Surah Al-Fatiha has got the biggest number of names. One of these surahs that have got various names is this surah that we're reading, Surah Al-Tawbah. It's called Surah Al-Tawbah, repentance. It's called Surah Al-Bara'ah, explanation. It's called Al-Muqayyira. Al-Muqayyira with a qaf. From the word qayyara. Qayyara means to dig deep into something, to discover its reality. And it's called also Al-Munaqqira, from the word naqra, to make a hole. And it's called Al-Mushaqqshiqa, the one that makes openings. Why? This surah has disgraced and shown the hypocrites. In the Medinian society, there was a group of people who showed something and they kept something else. They claimed that they are Muslims, but internally they were not. Even their actions did not indicate that they were Muslims. And some surahs of the Qur'an came down disgracing these people and showing their reality. And we don't want one of these surahs is Surah Al-Tawbah, and one of these surahs is Surah Al-Munafiqun, a surah that was named after them, telling us what actions do they have, what are their traits, what are their characteristics. And this is called nifaq in iman. When someone is a kafir, but externally he claims that he is a Muslim. But there is also another type of nifaq, another type of hypocrisy. It is a hypocrisy in action. When someone is a Muslim internally and externally, but he adopts one of the characteristics of the hypocrites. A Muslim should have nothing to do with hypocrisy in action and in belief. So you might have a strong belief, but this belief should manifest in your actions. If your belief is not strong enough and your actions therefore manifest something other than your belief, then you're adopting a characteristic of the hypocrites. You're not a hypocrite, but you are what? You should not be like that. So when we say he is munafiq in that sense, it means like, stay away from this. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, أَرْبَعٌ مَنْ كُنَّ فِيهِ كَانَ مُنَافِقًا خَالِصًا. There are 4 characteristics. If they exist in one person, he is purely munafiq. But not like in belief, but in full action. Meaning, he is strongly a hypocrite externally. وَمَنْ كَانَتْ فِيهِ خَصْلَةٌ مِنْهُنْ. And the one who's got only one, كَانَتْ فِيهِ خَصْلَةٌ مِنَ النِّفَاقِ حَتَّى يَدَعَهَا. Then he has one of the traits of the hypocrite until he leaves it. The hadith does not mean that this person is munafiq in his heart, but it means that this person is doing something really bad. So you should not even adopt one of the traits of the disbelievers. What are these traits? He said, إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ. When he speaks, he tells lies. A believer should be what? Truthful. But can a believer tell a lie? The Prophet ﷺ said no. أَيَكُونُ الْمُؤْمِنُ كَذَّابًا? A believer can a believer tell a lie? He said no. Why? Although we see loads and loads of brothers who are telling lies. And the Prophet ﷺ said, a believer does not tell a lie. And yet we see people who are lying. The Prophet ﷺ is saying a believer should not be a liar. He's not saying he is not. He's saying what? أَيَكُونُ الْمُؤْمِنُ كَذَّابًا? قَالَ لَا. I cannot, like we said, I cannot imagine a Muslim who does this. But there are Muslims who do it. I cannot imagine a Muslim who does domestic violence. But there are Muslims who do domestic violence. I cannot imagine a Muslim who lies. But there are Muslims who lie. Meaning, he cannot be a Muslim while he is telling the lie. Because Iman is like water. It cleans you. How can you be clean and dirty at the same time? That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يزني الزاني حين يزني وهو مؤمن. When a person commits adultery, when a believer commits adultery, he's not a believer at that moment. Meaning, he has to switch off his Iman in order to do something bad. If his Iman was alive, he wouldn't have done that. So Surah At-Tawbah, and I'm not going to go into the details of Surah At-Tawbah, but I want to highlight one important thing. What is the problem with nifaq? What's the problem with hypocrisy? Whether in belief or in action. The essential problem with hypocrisy is raising things that have no value and belittling things that have values. That's the essence of nifaq. Any munafiq, any person who practices hypocrisy, whether in action or in belief, he evaluates things in a wrong way. So he gives people value. And he should give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala value. He gives things value. And he shouldn't be doing this. It should be the other way around. Hypocrites have given what? Have given individuals values. They did not know that Allah is the one who looks at the hearts. If they were to know that, they wouldn't have bothered. They would have shown their realities. And in the same way and in the same manner, if we give people a value and at the same time we forget about Allah, we will be adopting one of the characteristics and the traits of hypocrites. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that our inside should be like our outside. If I dislike someone for one reason or the other, I should show them that I dislike them. If I raise the status of something, I should raise the status of things that should be raised. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said to those who praise people for good or bad reasons, with or without reasons, he said, you should take some dust and throw it in their faces. Why? Why should you praise someone in his face, even if he deserves the praise? You should be praising them behind their back. Why are you raising someone's status? What do you want from them? Islam teaches us that the first consideration in our hearts should be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah is looking at the reality of our hearts. Allah said, أَتَخْشَوْنَهُ فَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن تَخْشَوْا. Are you afraid of them? You should be afraid of Allah. Are you considering them? You should consider Allah. Islam teaches a believer that his reality is what is between him and Allah. But what is between him and people is relative. Why? Because people don't know your reality. People cannot know your reality. People see from you certain things and they judge you based on what they see. But what you are is known to the one who has created you. Sayyidina Imam Al-Secondary rahimahullah says, شَرُّ النَّاسِ مَنْ تَرَكَ يَقِينَ مَا عِنْدَ نَفْسِهِ لِظَنِّ مَا عِنْدَ النَّاسِ. The worst of all people is someone who leaves what he's sure about himself for what people think of him. People think of you different things. They think you're righteous, they think you're smart, they think you're this. This is thinking. This is their own thinking. But what are you? You know that. You will be deceiving yourself too much if you start thinking, I am good. Because people say, I am good. When people don't know you, it's just like you're getting a person who is not a specialist in anything and you tell him, what do you think of this? I remember once I was sitting with one of my teachers Who's an expert in ilm al-aswat, in the science of sounds and voices? And I said to him, you know what? And I said to him, I said, oh, mashallah, this sound is really good. He said, based on what are you saying that? Based on what you're saying that is good. I said, Shaykh, mashallah, it sounds so nice. He said, look, in Egypt we say, كل شيء عدس. Like people who don't know the difference between grains, they will see any grain and they will say, what? It is lentils. So this beans, lentils. What is this? Lentils. What is this? Lentils. What is this? Lentils. They don't know the difference between lentils and beans and wheat and barley. They don't know the difference. So every grain for them is what? For them is lentils. Because they are no experts. Right, isn't it? It's no experts. I remember when I used to go to the market to buy some vegetables for my wife, so she used to tell me, well, can you get us this and this and this and this? And I said, how? And then I would get a lot of things wrong. Especially some vegetables that look like each other. And then I said, no, that's not what I wanted. I said, I thought it is what I wanted. But I'm not an expert. Next time, can you Google pictures and send text them to me? Right? So sometimes we don't have experience. So based on what are we judging things? Right? So who has the experience of your heart? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who knows what you are? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you should be considering how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at your heart. Not how people are looking at you. Because people just base their judgment of you based on their external. And those who evaluate people in this way, in a way that they don't evaluate Allah, they don't think about Allah, have adopted one of the characteristics and the traits of nifaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the munafiqeen, they bother to wise that, because when you consider people only, you will bother about your external only. What people see of you is your external. So you will bother too much about how do you look, how do you speak, how do you do this. And you will leave your heart empty. You will leave it deserted. You will leave it dry. So you will be like a house. It looks very nice outside. But inside, dirty. They say in Arabic, تَرَى الْفِتْيَانَ كَالنَّخْلِ وَمَا يُدْرِكَ مَا الدَّخْلِ. You see a man, looks like a palm date tree. Big. You see a nakhla, a date tree. Very big and strong and tall. But possibly inside it is very rotten. If you just hit it with one hand, it falls down. It's rotten from inside, right? What we should care about is this. That's inside. Hadith Sufyan ibn Abdullah al-Harith in Sahih Muslim and in the Riyadh al-Salihin, the Prophet ﷺ said, "At-taqwa hahuna." Righteousness is inside, not hahuna, not outside. Righteousness is in the heart. That is the place Allah will look at. Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam was revealed to Dawood alayhi salam that Allah looks at the hearts. The Prophet said, Allah yanzuru ila qulubikum. Allah looks at your hearts. Wala yanzuru ila suwarikum. Allah doesn't look how do you look. What are you dressed in? So the hypocrites care about what? People. And because people look at their external, they beautify their external. And therefore, they are similar to the dunya. Because dunya beautifies its external, but its internal is really bad. The Prophet ﷺ told us that Isa ibn Maryam said the example of dunya is like a very old woman, a very old, ugly woman who puts a lot of makeup. And she presents herself to all suitors. And all these suitors, they know that that her reality is not good. But they go and marry her and she kills them. They know that she is going to kill them and they fall. Why? They are distracted by the external. So the munafiqeen and the people of dunya, abna'u dunya, the children of dunya, they care about the external. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and I'm going to conclude with this, in description of munafiqeen, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَهُ تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُم. If you look at them, you like their bodies, meaning nice, dressed nicely. وَإِن يَقُولُوا, and in that qira'ah, the qira'ah of Khalaf and Hamza, وَإِن يَقُولُوا يُسْمَعْ لِقَوْلِهِمْ. Hafs reads, وَإِن يَقُولُوا تَسْمَعْ لِقَوْلِهِمْ. And if they speak, you listen to them. وَإِن يَقُولُوا يُسْمَعَ لِقَوْلِهِمْ. And if they speak, their speech is so nice that people will listen. إِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُمْ وَإِن يَقُولُوا تَسْمَعَ لِقَوْلِهِمْ كَأَنَّهُمْ خُشُبٌ مُسَنَّدَةٌ. As if they are logs of wood put against the wall. You look at it, oh, mashallah, this looks very nice. يَحْسَبُونَ كُلَّ صَيْحَةٍ عَلَيْهِمْ. When anyone speaks about the rottenness of reality of anyone, they think you are referring to them. Why? They feel that they are not based on good foundation. Anyone who's got a problem will think that whenever he hears some criticism, he thinks you mean him. You don't mean him. When you speak about lying, liars will think you're talking about them. When you speak about deception, deceptors will think you're talking about them. When you speak about smokers, smokers will think that you speak about them. There was an imam in Egypt who had a smoking neighbor. And he was really, the imam was like not bothered about anything. But that smoking person used to dislike the imam for good or bad reason, for no reason at all. So the imam gave a khutbah on smoking. And the man stood up in the middle of the khutbah and he started shouting at the imam. And he left the masjid. So everyone looked at him and said, what's wrong with him? He said, this man has been my neighbor and he's talking about me. I said, I'm not talking about anyone. I'm just talking about a big problem. When you speak about a problem, you know, in Arabic they say, كَادَ الْمُرِيبُ بِأَنْ يَقُولَ خُذُونِي. A criminal will always hold his hand on his chest. Are they talking about me? Are they talking about me? Are they talking about me? What's wrong with this? They said that Ibn Sirin, Muhammad ibn Sirin, was a great man, tabi'i, who was known for interpreting dreams. And he was a very righteous man. He said, I saw a woman in my dream, so I lowered my gaze because it's haram to look at a woman. That is not haram. In his dream. Muhammad ibn Sirin, a man came to him and he said, someone has been killed in our vicinity. And we don't know who is the killer. He said, no problem. Whom do you doubt? He said, we doubt 10 people. So Muhammad ibn Sirin said, okay, bring them to me. And he said to the 10 people, enter this room from one gate and come out from the other door. There is a rope between two walls. You put your hand on this rope. And this rope is a blessed rope. It will wrap on the hand of the criminal. It will catch the criminal. So all of them went in and they came out and none of them was caught. So he said, can you turn your hands upside down? They turned their hands upside down. All of them has got marks on their hands except one person. What he did, he painted the rope with tar. And he told people, you go in, touch the rope. Everyone who was sure about himself, he touched the rope. The one who knew that he is a criminal, he didn't touch it. So he came out and his hand was clean. He said, this is the criminal. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala